Today's pre-video act goes out to Stellar Wolf. All Stellar Wolf did was subscribe and join my Discord. Today's gift consisted of a full set of superior dragon armor. Want this to happen to you? Hit that subscribe button and join my Discord today. Link is in the description. Hey everyone, it's your favorite blue guy here. Over the years, I've had my fair share of hate thrown towards my way, whether it be from those who think my take on addiction to Skyblock is a little too spicy for their own good, whether it be from those who have a different favorite color and take it personally, or from those who just flat out don't like the things I say and do. One of the most common questions I get asked on the forums, as well as on YouTube, Twitter, and all other sites I'm active on, has, in some way or another, to do with hate towards me. Things like, how many neutral reactions have you been given? How many negative conversations are sent your way a day? How many times do people threaten you, etc.? As sad as this may seem to some of you, I'm not here to answer those types of questions today. What I am here to talk about, however, is how I personally deal with this influx, and how maybe the way I handle it can help out some of you who may be experiencing it as well. I know this may seem obvious to some of you, but I get a little bit more hate than the average person. We fortunately have a great GM team on the forums where this hate can usually be handled quickly, efficiently, and have action taken to prevent a majority of it from happening again. Like every site though, there can potentially be an infinite amount of users that browse it, so this experience is something that will never truly go away. Being active on the forums for over 8 years now, I've come to learn pretty much every single tactic used by these hate generators as a provocation attempt. I wanted to share my most used tactics to counter these types of attacks, both in actually getting it handled and how I react to it in real time, as well as the aftermath. Keep in mind that I'm speaking solely about my experience on the Hypixel forums, which has a different system around it versus something like Reddit or Twitter or even YouTube. I think the tactics I use can be universal enough to the point where it'll mostly be effective on those other sites, but keep in mind it may not be 100%. The most common thing I resort to regarding how I physically deal with this harassment? Reporting. I've come to realize that a lot of people tend to not report because they don't actually believe it'll do anything. And if you had told me this a year or two ago, I may have slightly agreed. The old staff management team did not do a great job at being efficient and protecting its users from this harassment. As of September 2021, however, moderation of the forums has actually become pretty great. I'd say it's probably at its all-time high in terms of efficiency and production. Reports usually get handled in minutes nowadays, and the newest staff management team has turned away from the all talk no action policy and has become a lot of action, a lot of transparency policy. I promise you guys, if someone on the forums is harassing you and you report it and let someone know, it will be dealt with. And I know this team, they're full of strict homies. They show very little mercy towards guys like this. The GM team cares about each and every single one of the people that use the site. I don't think they'd be joining a bunch of forum discords and actively discussing changes and policies with us if they didn't. No one should feel like no one is there to step in and prevent this from happening, especially under this newest administration. Second, there will be times where guys may not actively be breaking rules, but can still get in your face and do their best to get reactions out of you. To this, I say a tactic that seems very easy on paper, but can sometimes be difficult to manage well. Ignorance. It's probably the most powerful one out of this list I have. These guys want reactions. You live rent-free in their heads 24/7. They have wet dreams about you replying to them and giving them the attention that they so desperately crave from you. When did I write this? Want to blue ball them hard? Simply just don't answer their bait. That's usually enough to send several into a self-imposed frenzy. What's it got to do with you? Absolutely nothing. You're off having the best day of your life and being productive. The forums do have an ignore feature to help with this. Although this will prevent you from seeing their messages, it won't prevent them from still being able to respond to the things you say and do, and there is a button to toggle it, so keep that in mind. Now that's how I usually handle harassment like that up front. Now I want to get into how I deal with it on a feelings level, both immediately and shortly after. One of the first things I'll think of when I get sent some form is this truly harassment, or am I simply misunderstanding the wording of this paragraph? Surprisingly, a lot of the time, people don't usually mean to be outright rude or provocative. People can be really sensitive about certain things, and if you maybe say something that triggers that, despite nothing even being wrong with it, you could maybe trigger a response like that. I'll usually try to make sure if that's the case or not before I do anything else. Mostly knowing what the other person's thinking can make it a lot easier to handle responses like that. In a best case scenario, they explain themselves, apologize, and we both move on with our day. Here's an example of what I mean by that. At first glance, it's super easy to write a response like this off as nothing more than gurbo, but with context, it becomes clear that the person wrote what they wrote because they care about the matter at hand. They don't like that someone else is saying something different than they believe, so they'll naturally defend their view on it, albeit a little abrasive and uncalled for in certain areas. If I've determined that it isn't that, however, and they just want to start things, I'll then decide if it's worth it to answer in an effort-filled and nicely worded single response. This one can go about half and half. Half of the time, it's pretty clear that they don't really care what I say in response and only want me to respond so they can continue doing what they're doing. The other half, they're truly passionate about either something I said or an idea I had, and want to truly know why I think what I think, albeit they'll say it sometimes in an extremely uncalled for way. If it's the former, that's when I usually close the convo, never to be seen by human eyes again. If it's the latter, at that point, I think the other person deserves at least one response explaining my thoughts a bit more. I'm not a fan of burning bridges because literally anything can happen in the future. In the years I've been here, I've had several guys from the past who said really questionable things to me come back years later and express huge regret for how they talked to me, among other things. It's important to never immediately judge someone based on a single conversation. The likelihood is they're not an evil dictator, even if they pretend to be one, so just keep that in mind. Lastly, we just have something like this. This is where you don't attempt to respond, you bring it forward to the right people, and you get back on track. Zero reason to think that these messages can ever be dealt with reason. Lastly, we move on after the exchange has happened, the aftermath. It's understandable to feel angry, hurt, confused at this point, and I've gone through the motions countless times. At this point, I can usually just brush it off and continue like nothing ever happened, but that's really only because it just happens so frequently nowadays. For the majority of you watching, you probably don't get things like that sent to you as much. So I'm gonna share what I would originally do to get through these feelings that come with exchanges like that. If you don't own a stress ball, I would recommend you get one. Those things are super duper useful no matter what anyone says. Mine is personally a smiley face stress ball, but yours can be whatever you want. Having it to just get force out of you will instantly take that feeling down from 100% to a crisp 50, just like that. At least it would for me. If you don't currently own a stress ball, then you could always say your feelings out loud. Cursing is okay, and if your parents disapprove, just explain to them that it helps you cool down and that much worse things could happen if you let it boil up inside of you. Even to this day, I'll still say things out loud instead of in-game or on the forums if I get to a point where I get visibly upset. Better to say it out loud where the person won't know anything versus type it to them and burn a potential bridge in the future. Except if it's racist. Finally, if neither option is working for you, perhaps you should just take some time off of the computer. I do mean this one. I will personally go on a walk every single day for at least 45 minutes. There are also thousands upon millions of hours on content on TV that I know you haven't watched. Why not search for a new favorite TV show or movie? It's easier than you may think. If you're unable to spend time away from the computer, then that's an entirely different issue that you'll need to resolve. Before I end this, I just want to say one more thing. No one on the forums and no one in the community deserves harassment. It never solves anything, and the only thing you reveal about yourself if you partake in it is the amount of immaturity and sadness you like to put in your drink. Alright, this has been your favorite blue guy. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.